الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر الله أكبر ولله الحمد.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you all? Are you excited for your next session? Do you know what it is? Note taking, right? Many of you were requesting it, and I'm sure you're very curious to know and understand all the tips that you need to know to make better note, right? So I would like to introduce your teacher for this subject. Her name is Sister Wafa Qadri. She has a diploma in business administration. She's completed her Talimul Quran in 2011. She also has completed the advanced course, which was in 2012. She has done an ijaza in Hafs and Asim, and she has taught other subjects such as fasting and calligraphy. Okay, and currently she's the course coordinator for the translation course that's ongoing right now. So please welcome Sister Wafa.
All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. How are you all doing today? Alhamdulillah. Let's begin with du'as. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbana zidna ilma. Allahumma faqihna fid din. Allahumma inni as'aluka ilman nafi'a wa amalan mutaqabbala wa rizqan tayyiba. Allahumma anfa'na bima 'allamtana wa 'allimna ma yanfa'una wa zidna ilma. So how's the course going so far? Are you able to take notes? Yes, are you trying to figure out what to write, how to write? Did you get a hang of it? Yeah? Not yet? Okay. Inshallah, I'll be sharing some tips with regards to note taking, which hopefully should help you, inshallah. And we'll begin. So the first slide, how to take notes. Okay, first of all, what should we start with? Date. Before the date, what should we start with? Bismillah. Okay, always make sure you begin your lesson, whatever you do, start with Bismillah, so Allah puts barakah in it, right? Then we have things over here. So begin with the date, writing the date. You can also mention the year. It's interesting how sometimes when I look at my blue juz and I see the year written and I'm like, oh, wow, it's been like 10, 12 years since I did it. So yes, you can mention the year as well. So that when you look back at your notes, you can see, that was the time when you did this course. If you're starting with a new surah, then of course you mention the name of the surah. You mention the lesson number and also the verses that will be covered. And usually this is something that the teacher starts off with, so you should also make sure you're writing it down as well. With regards to how much should you write, like I would recommend dividing the page. So you could divide the page into two, where one side could be lesser than the other side, because word analysis is usually lesser compared to the tafsir, right? So on one side, you could have the word analysis. And what comes under the word analysis? The root words. What else? The stem words. What else? Singular, plural, yes. So these are some things that could go on one side of the page, and it could be the lesser side. And then you have the other side where you have the tafsir, right? The details, the hadith, for example, the other details with regards to the ayah that could go on the other side. Now, what is important? Sometimes when you see it's like a lot of information. So it's like, what should I write? Okay. Do mention the action points, like something after the ayah is done, there could be some action points as to what do we get from this ayah, or what should we do? What is the action point from this ayah? What is the reflection from the ayah? So that's something you can mention. Then contextual information as to with regards to in the context, what does this ayah mean, right? Then hadith. Hadith sometimes is difficult to catch, right? So because it's pretty long, right? So I would recommend just getting like a gist of the hadith, in which what is mentioned, like what's the main point out of the hadith. So that's something you can mention instead of writing the whole hadith, because sometimes you might not be able to catch it, which is fine, but just make sure you are able to mention at least, like, by whom the hadith is and what is the general idea or the gist of the hadith. Then the ayah references that are given, this is pretty easy to catch. And then some ayahs also have interpretation, like from this ayah, what is implied? What is the interpretation of the ayah? So it's important to mention that as well. Now, remember, don't record, like don't write each and everything that the teacher mentions. Okay. If you're able to do that in the, like you're able to write fast, write quickly, that's good. But sometimes you can miss out, right? So you don't have to write verbatim, as in you don't have to write word to word, as in whatever the teacher is saying, but try to catch the important points. Okay. Because you also have to like understand as well what she's saying. So make sure you use bullet points, for example. Don't write like sentences, but use bullet points instead, and just like um, write down the important points that are mentioned in the particular ayah. And then you can highlight hard words. So when you're doing your lesson, or while you're doing the lesson in class, you might come across some words which might be a little difficult. So you can highlight them at that time. Or maybe when you're doing your lesson later, you find that these words are difficult. So highlight them so that when you're doing your lesson, you keep coming back to those words, and you keep testing yourself. Because I find that when you highlight the words and when it's time for your test, uh, sometimes you don't get time to go over the whole lesson. You can just go over the highlighted words or the difficult words, and you should be able to prep for the test, inshallah. Then, of course, you have to note down the root letters. One recommendation is that you write the root letters close to the word so you can see it in the word. For example, al-alamin, you see in Ain Lam Mim, so you can either underline it or you can write it separately, Ain Lam Mim, just under it. And then you have alhamdu here, which is Ha Mim Dal, and you can just write below it. So that's one recommendation. If not, you can even write it on the word analysis column that you have in your notes. Okay. Then should I use colored pens? What do you think? Should we use it? No? Yes? Well, I did use them. So I used to have where word analysis used to be in one color, tafsir used to be in another color. I remember when we were doing the course together, there were some friends of mine who had different things in different colors. So the root words in one color, the word analysis was in one color, the tafsir was in one, the singular plurals were in another color. So, I mean, of course, they were able to manage, which is good. But if you're not able to, I would say just stick to regular one color pen. But if you are able to, I would say root words is something you can use color so that it stands out. So when you look at the word, you can get the root words easily. But it's totally up to you if you would like to use it or not. Now, what if you miss something? What can you do? You miss writing something, sorry? Recording. So you do have access to recordings, so you can catch up with the recordings. And what if you're still confused? Yeah, ask the teacher. Yes, always approach your teacher. Inshallah, she would be able to solve any confusion. Yes? Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, of course. So it's she's saying that if someone misses something and it's difficult to go back to the recording and listen to all of the recordings. So if it's a little thing here and there, you can always check with your friends in class and catch up on the recording as well. Now here are some sample notes from previous batches. And here, if you see, they've divided into two colors. And just go to the next one. And then post-its were also used in order to add some extra details. So here, like you can see in the next slide. So this one. So in this one, if you can see the word analysis is on one side and the root letters are highlighted. So you can either have it on this side or you could also have it on the other side, like I mentioned before. So it's important that you separate the word analysis from the tafsir. Okay. Moving on. So it's important that you're actively listening as well. So when the class is going on, it's important that you're listening to the class as well, and of course you're taking notes as well. So which is why it's important that you write down notes in bullet points, like not detail, so that you can also listen to the class as well. Uh, Focus. Yeah, should have your attention in class. Now we move on to the part how to memorize the word-to-word translation of the Quran. How has it been going so far? Alhamdulillah, it's good. You're getting the hang of it. Okay, Alhamdulillah, that's good. Um, Read the entire ayah in Arabic and its running translation so as to understand the ayah as a whole. So before you go on to do your new lesson, make sure you've read the running translation once. And it's important to know what you are memorizing. Focus on every word and break it down. So for example, here we have al-alamin. You could break it down to al being the and alamin worlds. So you could break down words like that for the purpose of translation. Every letter carries a meaning. Make sure you don't miss out on any of the extra letters that are in the word. Connect the words to your language or your life and other words that you have learned in the Quran. So connect the words to your language, as in some words, maybe they have some connection, maybe they're similar in your language, or maybe, you can make some connections. For example, ard, what is it very similar to? Like the translation is earth, right? So they're very similar in its translation. So somehow connect the words so that you're able to remember them. And if your language is Urdu, for example, there are some words which are very similar, like they have a very similar meaning. So you can connect them in that way. Highlight the difficult words. Read your notes on that word to understand it better. So there are some words which you might come across. They're difficult to understand. They are maybe difficult in their translation. Highlight them at that time and read your notes on that word to understand it better. Memorize one ayah at a time. Now, this tip is, sometimes if you have like 10 ayahs, we just keep on reading the 10 ayahs, again and again. It might work for some, why not? But I would recommend memorize one ayah at a time. Like focus on one ayah. Once it's done, then move on to the next ayah. Repeat the Arabic and English word to word out loud. So when you're memorizing, of course, you have to say the Arabic and then the English as well. Repeat the ayah a minimum of seven times, three to four times while looking, and another three to four times while covering the translation. So it's important that when you're doing your word to word translation, of course, you have to look at the juz. So the first few times, look at it, but also test yourself. Once you're done, test yourself looking at the mushaf. So use your mushaf and try to do the word to word translation. And wherever you're getting stuck, you could probably highlight it or underline it or something, and then come back to it and see what the meaning is. The more you practice, the better you get, which is why it's important. We do our lesson at least a minimum of 7 times. Read the difficult word after memorizing the entire lesson. So you know how you had some difficult words, they were highlighted. So go over them again once you're done with memorizing your entire lesson. Cover the individual word and test yourself. This is again for that difficult word, cover it and keep testing yourself, and also using the plain mushaf. So once you're done with memorizing your lesson, test yourself by doing the lesson in the mushaf. Now, some tips on studying effectively. Begin with A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajim, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Sit in a quiet place with least amount of disturbance. This will help you focus on the lesson. Concentration killers, we all know what they are, right? Social media or emails or cell phones. Make it a point that when you're doing your lesson, you try to keep this away from you, because once you pick it up, then you don't know where the time goes, right? So try to avoid that when you're doing your lesson. Make sure it's away, that you're not distracted and you're sitting in a quiet place where you can focus, inshallah. Avoid logging into social media sites while you're doing your lesson. Do not check email continuously or turn off your cell phone if you need to while you're memorizing. I would recommend don't use your phone for your lesson. As much as possible, use your blujas or the mushaf or anything else, but avoid using your phone because it is distracting, right? Do not multitask when you're studying, like do one thing at a time. Don't do too many things. I know some people might be good at multitasking, but make it a point that, when you're doing Quran, you're focusing on it and that you're only doing that at that time. If you get bored of reading the lesson 7 times, break up the reading for separate occasions. Now, this is one thing that I remember. I would break down the lesson into like 3 portions. So I would do 2 right after class. If I get time, like, while you're driving, of course, if you're driving, you can't do it, but if you're being driven, you can do it. So, twice at that time, twice maybe later on, and then twice towards the end of the day, and maybe once in the morning. So splitting it up instead of doing 7 times in one go, inshallah, would help you memorize it better. If it's difficult, if the ayah is difficult, you're feeling stressed about it, turn to Allah, pray 2 rakah salah, make dua, and then there's a dua I'm not sure if you're aware of, but to make things easy. Allahumma la sahla illa ma ja'altahu sahla wa anta taj'alul hazna iza shi'ta sahla. So that's a dua when you make when you want Allah to make things easy for you. Then read your du'as before you start, in the middle, when you finish. Ask Allah for help, right? Whenever you're doing anything, ask Allah for help. Hearing what you want to memorize in your own voice will help you memorize it faster. Therefore, reading out loud is necessary. So it's important that you do read out your lesson out loud, at least for the first few times. And sometimes if you do want to do it slowly, that's fine, but do read it out loud a few times at least. Then regarding the difficult words, you could either write them on a separate sheet of paper, you could make flashcards, or you could test yourself often on them. So if you've highlighted them, you can test yourself on them often. And this is a real test to see if you can identify the words out of the lesson. Because sometimes, when they are in the lesson itself, it's easier. But when it's out of context, like for tests, you'll see when they're out of context, you're sometimes blank. Like, what is this word? So it's important that you do them separately as well so that you can identify them. Now, how to prompt yourself, visualize the context, say it slowly, break down the word, identify the root letters, and skip and return back to it. Recite your lesson to someone else and have him or her test you. So once you're done your lesson, maybe 5 times or 6 times, the 7th time you could have someone listen to you. Either it's your friend or someone at home who can listen to you and test you with regards to your lesson. It's important that you value your time. So make sure you value each and every minute and second of your life, and take use of this time that you're here and value it. And also remember, the time lost, it cannot be regained. There's a saying which says, if you fail to plan, it's almost like you're planning to fail, right? So plan your time, manage your time accordingly, and prioritize what's important. Now, I'm sure it's the second week, right? Second week of your course. It's important that you have some schedule for yourself as to when are you doing your lesson. If there's some other subject requirement, how are you planning your time? So have a set schedule for yourself in which you make sure you're doing the commitments that are required of this course. So it's important that you manage your time. So do not procrastinate. Like leave it for later. I would say daily, of course, you have to do some lesson daily. Make sure you're doing it daily. And if on the weekend you're able to do it, don't leave it for a test time. Because if you leave it for the last moment, it's going to get too much. So make sure you're doing it daily as required. And also in the weekend, if you're able to do it, so that it doesn't pile up before your test time. Memorize and revise your lesson whenever you have time. So I would say, maybe you can carry your juz along with you. Maybe you're going somewhere, it's a long ride, or you think you might have some portions of time. So carry your blue juz with you wherever you go. And if it's possible, if it's doable, you can just, open it up and do your lesson at that time. Listen to the Quran recitation before and after studying. This is an excellent way to revise what you have memorized and also to test yourself. So, apart from you yourself reading these ayahs, before you start the memorization or the word to word memorization of these ayahs, I would recommend that you listen to the recitation of these ayahs. So, at least listen to it once before the lesson, once after the lesson, or after you're done studying, so that you can, once you're listening to the ayahs, you can, you try and do the word to word translation in your head. Then you can listen to the word-to-word translation from Malhuda as well. Uh, I'm sure in the recording you do have the word-to-word translation, right? So you could listen to that as well, so that you can just follow along with that. Recite the verses after Fajr to test your understanding of the ayat. So as I said, split it up. Split up your your the way you're memorizing the ayahs into different chunks, like two at one time, two at another time, and maybe leave one time for after Fajr. Or if it works, if you think you are able to work better, of course, if at the time after Fajr is blessed, right? So I would say keep some memorizing or keep some portion of your lesson for that time because that time is blessed, right? So inshallah, Allah will help you, make it easier for you. And inshallah, Allah will put barakah in that time. Some effective study habits, make sure you're doing it daily, weekly, as in not leaving it for before the test, but you're doing it daily, weekly, and also before the test as well. And that's the end. Any questions with regards to note taking? Any comments? Sorry? The presentation? I think it will be uploaded on the portal. I'll have to check, inshallah. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yes. Can you take the mic, please?
Assalamualaikum.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that when you said about the hadith part,
Mhm.
I think that for me, what worked most was whenever you just write the note of the hadith, like the last part
Mhm.
where it says like the number and like what is Bukhari, whatever it is,
Yes.
and then you could go on sunnah.com or wherever whenever you're going through your notes and check them out. I think that's easier.
Yeah, of course. If you get the number of the hadith and which book it is from, then you can always go and catch up and fill in your notes. And that's, of course, if you have time, right? If you have extra time, you're able to do it, might as well, you can catch up, inshallah. But if you're not able to, just get like a gist of it, like what the hadith is talking about, or as you mentioned, getting the number and the book that it is from, and that should be sufficient as well, inshallah. Any other comments or questions with regards to this? How has been note taking so far? How have you been taking notes so far? Tough? Yeah, it's been, yes.
Like I dedicated for example, I had color coded sticky notes.
Mm-hmm.
It's like orange I just put for like hadith and like other colors for other stuff.
Okay, that's good. That's good, mashallah. You color coded with the sticky notes?
It helps.
Okay, alhamdulillah. That's good. That's good. Yes. Purges. I believe you have at every half, like at NISF, there'll be a test. So I think purges you'll have about 2 tests. Yeah. Inshallah. Any other questions? So I do have my juz from back in 2010. when I did the course. And of course, I bought two just to show you that, they're not that perfect. Like, of course, when we started, it wasn't, we didn't know it takes some time for you to get used to what to write. Uh, but it's fine. Like, if, as I mentioned, if you miss something, it's okay. But do, make an intention that whatever you're writing, inshallah, you should be able to benefit someone as well, benefit yourself first, of course, and also benefit others in the future. So do take good notes so that when you look back at your blue juz and you remember the time that, you spent with the Quran, and that you have, something to look back at, or, the notes as well. All right, inshallah, we'll end here. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر الله أكبر ولله الحمد الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر الله أكبر ولله الحمد